It's the Brad and John Show.
And it's December 16th. This is the C block, which means we started around 7:40. Do that as a reference for people listening to the show in the future. And John, I have to make a phone call. I'm going to start this section off, and this is an audible. You don't know about this? You know who I'm calling? You have no idea, do you?
No. Is it someone who will be annoyed?
It is someone who will be annoyed. And so they will be highly annoyed and chances are they won't answer the phone. So we'll just have to wait and see here what happens. Okay, there's one ringy dingy. Any money there won't answer the phone. Two ringy dingies. Nobody knows the reference to that. Shelly does. He's not going to answer. I can tell. He's probably all at work. This is my son, Blake. Today's his birthday. Yeah, he's not going to answer. I'll give one more ring and they'll hang up.
The Google Fi wireless subscriber you have called is...
Yeah, okay. He's not there. Okay. My son, Blake, my two youngest sons are born not a week apart, but a week apart, 3 years apart, if that makes any sense. So it's always to the point where my one son is born on the 16th, and the way the calendar works, if my one son's born on the 16th, the next week, my other son was born on the 23rd. So if the birthdays are on Monday, they're on Monday. And
that's easy. That makes it a little bit easier to remember.
This is my son, Blake, who is the nerd of the family, super brilliant. You know, I will tell you, I have four very smart kids because they have a very smart mother. They have a stupid, ignorant, dumb father, and they got all their brains from their mother. And
not true.
This is my son Blake, who has a double major from Mizzou in the engineering school. He has an electrical engineering degree and a computer science degree, and has worked for such little unknown companies as Garmin, as Amazon. He's worked for some big monster companies. Matter of fact, I always find this fascinating because I think this is really interesting. When he worked at Garmin for 2 or 3 years, and he actually started out in the avionics division. If you know anything about aviation, Garmin is like one of the huge names. If you have a glass cockpit, if you have an aircraft that has Garmin avionics in it, man, that's like something. That's like really high tech. And then he went to work for Amazon, and he worked for actually a division of Amazon, which was bought. It was a company, and it was a robotics division that did all the robots in the warehouse. And in order to, the first thing he did when they hired him, he had to work for a week in the warehouse, literally put on the safety vest and actually, was pulling things off the shelves and putting things in boxes and things like that, which I thought was really interesting because they wanted to give him a really good background in how the warehouses worked. And then he went to work on programming the robots that fill the orders and stuff like that. So anyway, I don't even want to venture guess as how old he is because I don't want to know how old he is because of the fact that every time when my kids hit mile markers, where they're, like hit the decade
like
mark.
40 or something.
Oh my God, it makes me feel so damn old. But, when you get to be at my age, 89, 1 foot in the grave, 1 foot in a banana peel, you say.
Now, the problem with your kayfabe birthday is you never change it though, Brad. Because like a year ago you were saying you're 89 and now you're still saying you're 89.
No. A year ago I was saying when I was 88.
Oh, were you really? Okay.
Yeah, I was 88. Now I'm 89. And it's not a fake birthday. Born in 1935, graduated from high school in 1953. How would I know those dates if I really didn't live them, right?
Yeah. It's like when you ask a kid with a fake ID what their birthday is, and then they're real smart and they know their horoscope sign because they know a good bouncer will say, "Hey, sweetie, then what's your horoscope sign?" And when the girl doesn't know, then you tell her, "Sorry, this is a terrible fake ID. Get out of here."
No, you just say, "Hey, I'm McLovin and I'm from Hawaii." Come on, everybody knows it.
You're exactly right.
Okay, things to talk about now. I'm out of stuff. What do you have, John?
Wow. Okay, that's good. I'm glad that we spent some time on show prep. Did you see the piece that I sent you this morning, Brett?
No, you did. What did you email it to me? Here, let me look.
Okay. Yeah. No, I sent you. I guess I sent you a piece yesterday. I sent you a piece a few days ago about Arch Apparel.
Oh yeah. That was last week.
Hipster clothing brand.
Right. And explain why you call it the hipster clothing brand. Okay, why is that?
Well, because it's known as a streetwear brand. So it's and hipster is only derogatory if you think that a hipster is a bad thing, Brad. Yeah, it's generally known as a streetwear brand because it's casual clothes. It's stuff like you're not going to buy a dress shirt from Arch Apparel. You're going to buy an $85 hooded sweatshirt, let's say. or you're going to buy a T-shirt with an STL logo in it or something like that. And we talked about them back in most recently. I'm bringing it up. We talked about them back on 314 Day, Brad, because you were talking about, that's Pi Day, but it's also when local businesses celebrate being in the 314, being in our area. And Arch Apparel had just announced that they were closing. I believe at the time they were just closing a West County facility. And so the story that came out last week was that Arch Apparel was sued by its former landlord at one of the businesses they owned in Brentwood. Apparently they owe at least now they're being sued for they owed about $171,000. So we talked about this, Brad, back in March, back in the context of they were still leaving their Ballpark Village store open. And I thought, it's a good idea to have a presence, I guess, downtown during baseball season. But why would you have a brick and mortar store in downtown St. Louis and expect to make any money? You see what I'm saying? Like, why would anybody think that's a good idea?
Well, I have to tell you, I think that anybody who's in the apparel business nowadays, that's got to be really tough with everybody buying things online. How many people, like, for example, I buy almost all my clothes online. I had to admit that, but I do. But what's interesting about it?
What's that?
I buy it from companies that are headquartered here in St. Louis.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I do. Matter of fact, one of them is headquartered out in Missouri Research Park.
What's the name of it?
Proper.
Oh, wow. Well, and let's real quick, because I do want to get back to the Arch Apparel thing real quick. So apparently they signed a 7-year lease, Brad, back for the location off of South Hanley Road. And I guess as I read this, the company hasn't been making its payments. The gentleman who owns the company is named Aaron Park, and he entered a 7-year lease agreement with the landlord in 2019. He ended the lease in April, said that he would pay a termination fee of $87,000 beginning in the summer, and the landlord says that he's breached the agreement and that Arch Apparel owes $171,000. Now, I don't know how you're going to make that money keeping a store open, and apparently at the downtown Ballpark Village location, now they've conceded that they should only keep it open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So now it's only open weekends. But I just don't understand, Brad. And if you go to and I should point out that Arch Apparel is a really popular brand. Like, you've seen, if you've been in a public park walking around, or you've been at a bar with a bunch of hipsters, you've seen an STL and a circle logo. So Arch Apparel has built a heck of a brand. And what we talked about back in March, Brad, I suggested what you just said, which is that they should focus on online sales. And I even said they should sell themselves and their intellectual property and their email list, sell it to a big company, because they're big companies that would love to have access to that customer base. Meanwhile, you can go to archapparel.com and you can buy a hooded sweatshirt, Brad, that says in block letters, Midwest Made, St. Louis, for $85. Now, Brad, are you going to spend $85 on a hooded sweatshirt that says Midwest Made, St. Louis?
You're talking to the king of uncoolness? Of course not. I'm not going to pay $85.
Yeah, and they have crewneck sweaters, like basic crewneck sweaters that say, like one says, cold AF, get it? Cold as freak. But like a basic STL logo sweater will set you back $68, Brad.
I don't understand it. And the crazy thing about it is, what I find fascinating about this is I watch a lot of guys on YouTube, and they are making a boatload of money selling their merch. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't, here's where I part with that, okay? We're in the business of selling advertising, okay? What ultimately keeps this radio station on the air is clients sending us money to promote their business on the radio and on our online sites and things like that, okay? I don't understand why anybody, and I know people are going to roll their eyes when I say this, why in the world you would pay pay to have a Cardinals logo or a Blues logo or any kind of stuff. Why you would pay? They should be paying you to walk around because they're in the advertising business as well too. You drive down the highway, you see billboards for the Cardinals, you see billboards for the Blues. They run radio ads, they run TV, they run social media. They pay for different promotions. Why should you wear something that you're paying them? They should pay you to wear their damn shirt.
I first of all, Brad, I agree, but you were thinking on way too high of a level here. Like because people see, if people like the Cardinals, and I'm biased because I love the Cardinals, I would never wear a Cardinals shirt. Like, I don't own a piece of Cardinals paraphernalia. That's just me. Like, I'm not going to wear a Cardinals shirt. But there are people that would say, I want everybody who walks past me at the street or at the gym to know that I support the local baseball team. So, like, they're doing it to send a message, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if it's a message. I think it's sometimes just like, oh, look at me, I'm cool, I'm a Cardinals fan.
Yeah, okay, so agree. But isn't that the message? I'm cool. And think about all the people, Brad, that in the last 2 years have purchased St. Louis City, the soccer team gear. I had someone recently ask me, hey, do you have any like St. Louis City stuff? Like, are you a fan of that team? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy. And even if I was, I'm not going to go pay $40 for a St. Louis City t-shirt. I'm just not going to do it.
Okay, you know what my problem with the whole St. Louis City thing is?
What's that?
Why would you name it St. Louis City? That would be like saying, hey, this is Ferguson. People are going around, they're going to go, oh, Ferguson, that's where, once again, it's St. Louis City. They've essentially said to everybody, and keep in mind, you're talking to a guy who looks at demographics all the time. Population of the city of St. Louis is getting close to 250,000. I think it's down to like 265 or 275 or something like that. St. Charles County will probably hit 450,000 probably in the next year or so. I think it's right now about 420. Okay, even Franklin County is 6 digits now. I think they're about 120, 130,000. Same thing with Jefferson County. Okay, when you name yourself St. Louis City, that would be like me saying, if I say, okay, I'm the Dupo Cardinals. People going, Dupo Cardinals?
Dupos. Yeah, but let me interrupt, Brad. And as I understand it, where this comes from, or my assumption, I shouldn't say, I haven't read anything about this, but my assumption is the most famous soccer team in Europe is Manchester City.
Isn't Manchester
England?
Isn't it Manchester United?
They're called Man City. So people think of them as Manchester City. So when I heard St. Louis City, I heard that not as the geographic area, but we want to be like the most popular football team in Europe, and they're Manchester City, so we're going to call ourselves St. Louis City. You get what I'm saying?
I thought it was Manchester United. Isn't that what they call themselves?
There is a Man U, but there's a Manchester City team.
Okay, so, but once again, I mean, it's basic branding, okay? If you say, like, for example, if you say, I'm going to move to, like I said, and I guarantee if I were in a room of 100 people living in the St. Louis area, and I said to them, hey, Brad, I hear you're moving. I mean, let's say I'm doing a presentation. There's 100 people in a room. Yeah, I'm moving. Where are you moving to? I'm moving to Sauget. People are going to go, oh, man, he's moving over there with the strip clubs. But yet, once again, the name is tarnished. And I don't know if you know this or not, Rich Sauget, years ago, tried to PR campaign. You're going to laugh because you're going to say, well, he's doing the same thing you're trying to do with Westplex. He tried to campaign, a PR campaign of calling the Metro East County because he essentially said, hey, people talk about West County. West County's where you want to live.
And
South County, East County's where you want to live. And it never caught on. Now, and what's interesting is most people, when if you say, hey, John, we're going to the East Side's Friday night. You want to go with us? Where do you think we're going? We're going
I think you would. You're going to a place where girls are working their way through school.
All right, we're going where the women are clothing optional. That's pretty much where we're going.
Yeah, where they're wearing clear heels.
Right. And once again, I give this exact same example. St. Louis City. When I first heard this, I thought to myself, there are branding experts who are just hitting themselves in the forehead and going like, oh my God, that's a stupid name. Because of the fact that once again, it's like like, for example, if someone tells me, and this is a terrible thing to say, if someone says, because my youngest son lives in St. Louis City, if someone says to me, oh, I'm looking for a house in St. Louis City, I go like, Why would you do that? Why would
Yes,
why,
like, yuck.
why do you
Like,
want to live
run.
there? Crime is terrible. You dial 911. Chances are, it would be like a betting game. Hey, let's dial 911 and see if somebody answers the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they do answer the phone, let's see if an ambulance shows up, and if the police show up. Why would you want to live there? And to the point where I'll never, my wildest dreams, understand why they shoehorned that soccer stadium where they did. To me, it's like why would you put it there?
Well, because somebody made a lot of money from it, Brad. You followed the story, right?
Well, but once again, it's to the point where it's like, you know what? Remember, you go way back when. One of the things that and there's two things. One of the things when they talked about expanding the airport, people said, first off, they talked about they had a couple different, alternative sites. One of them's Columbia, Illinois, okay? And the other was, guess what? Out in St. Charles County. They wanted to have the airport out there in St. Charles. People, well, that's too far out. That's way out in East Jesus. Okay, once again, if they would put the airport out there, it would be in an area that's in a growth area. And keep in mind, the one interesting thing, if you go back and your Disney trivia, if you know this or not, do you know what Walt Disney was so afraid of, that what happened to him in Disneyland? And that he, at the time, he built in the middle of nowhere, but he made the mistake of not buying enough property. And he lamented the fact that, all these little seedy hotels and things like that sprung up around him in Anaheim. And when they built Disney World, they purposely went in with all these fake corporations and stuff like that. They had all these straw buyers go in and buy property, and they bought much more property than they actually needed because they created a buffer. That's all you do. The problem with the St. Louis airport is, unless you take over Bridgeton, there's no place to go. You can't go on the north side because that's all Boeing. You can't go on the south side because that's Interstate 70. You can't go, you could go on the west side because you just get rid of Carrollton subdivision. You go on the east side, you just get rid of those people in Berkeley. But the idea being is, find someplace different. And that's exactly what KCI did, what Denver did. They put the airport in the middle of nowhere, and guess what? It's not in the middle of nowhere anymore because everybody moved in around the airport. And then they complain about the noise, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah. And if you want to hear more about this, you can hear there's a joint presentation between the Westplex Chamber and the Meacham Park Chamber of Commerce. And I was amazed that you were able to get those people on board, Brad. I mean, you went to the jail during visiting hours, so it was easy to meet with the Meacham Park leaders. But I think it's a great idea to team up with them, Brad.
John, the sad part of this is if you said the word Meacham or the name Meacham Park you put 100 people in a room, and I bet you there are only like 5 or 10 people that know what Meacham Park is.
Well, they probably don't know where Easton Avenue is either, Brad.
I know exactly where Eastern Avenue is. That's the Martin Luther King Drive now. That's what it used to be. See, no, by the way, we didn't talk about tomorrow. We'll have to, I did do my show prep, and I just looked at it right now. George Stephanopoulos, that was on my list of things to talk about. Did you hear about this?
Oh, and the lawsuit.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's essentially paying for Donald Trump's presidential idol.
Yes, is that funny? I mean, we'll talk about that tomorrow, okay? Got to get out of here.
Great to talk to you again, Brad. I missed you over the weekend.
I bet you did, like a hole in the head, right? that was like your John F. Kennedy line from a couple weeks ago, which is
that's horrible. Brad. I can't believe you said that.
That's what you said, and I didn't. And by the way, I will say this right now. I'm starting a new line of clothing.
Oh yeah, what's the name of it?
Pupoola.
That. Pupoola, Brad. You have to get around the censors. You have to put the emphasis on the poo.
It's Pupoola. That's the new line of clothing.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?